Damn! How does he know? How did Dave find out? My marriage is toast. I just know it. The courts will judge Dave to be the primary caregiver of our kids. He'll be awarded custody. I'll be a social pariah, shunned by just about everyone in this church-going community. Forgiven by the priest with soft words, but a judging expression. Just like he did with Mary Skelton. She only lasted about 3 months after her husband discovered her affair. 3 lonely months of being shunned by the rest of the community, despite what the priest had urged. This community really hates cheating spouses of both breeds. I slammed on the brakes and screeched to a halt, stopping 2 scant meters from hitting a little girl who had run onto the road chasing a ball. She looked to be about 3, about the same as my Paula. I was driving too fast, too preoccupied by my huge problem. The child's mother frowned at me from the curb, even though it was her fault for not supervising her kid better. I looked around and saw I was near the big park, 5 minutes from home. I suppressed my fears, drove with shaking hands another 200 meters, and pulled over before I hit someone in my distraction. How could Dave possibly think? No, that's stupid. Once Dave discovered I was having an affair, it's only logical he'd think ill of me and want to cover his bases. He might run a dinky little editorial service from home, but that doesn't mean he's stupid. Far from it. Once he found out, of course, he would think it wasn't my first and get the kid's DNA tested. But how did he find out? Carl and I have been so careful. Thoughts of Carl reminded me. I picked up my phone and navigated to Carla, if Dave ever asked, a recently started work colleague. Stick as close to the truth as possible was my motto. My text, "Can you talk?" While waiting for a reply, I continued to kick myself. Why, oh, why did I let that smooth-talking little jerk seduce me? No, now come on, be honest. That's not fair. Why we slept together the first time wasn't seduction and is perfectly explainable. It happened while we were out of town. We'd just spent 2 whole days negotiating an exhausting deal, celebrated with too many champagnes, and fallen into bed together. If I had stopped there, it would have been fine. I would have a secret that I would rue to my final day. A grave secret that could only hurt my husband and family. But I, or should I say we, didn't. We'd both been ensnared by the excitement of sleeping with someone different after 10+ years of marriage. The allure of the illicitness of it all, the thrill of the naughtiness of it. The superiority of knowing we were fooling our spouses, 2 people who knew us so well and successfully hiding it. Or not successfully hiding it, as it turns out. My thoughts were interrupted by the ding of a text from Carl. Finally. No, having dinner with Mary and the kids. What's up? Well, misery loves company, they say. He knows. Dave knows about us. How had Dave found out? We'd been incredibly careful. Only got together when we were away, and then only if we could get adjoining rooms. We never walked into the same room door together, and always used protection, even the first time. Made absolutely sure we behaved normally in public and when we were home with our respective spouses. Another ding. Hell, Mary is acting normally, so he hasn't told her. Do you think he will? How angry is he? Dunno. We haven't spoken yet. I did a runner as soon as I discovered he knew, I replied. This time I didn't have to wait long for a reply. Ding. Please beg him not to tell Mary. The selfish little jerk. Destroy my marriage, so long as he is unaffected. I have a good mind to tell his wife if Dave doesn't. Like I say, misery loves company. So how were we discovered? I'd made sure my love for my husband hadn't suffered. Not introduce any new positions or techniques I'd learned from Carl. To say intimacy with Carl was vanilla and uninspiring would be an understatement. He was smaller, lasted less time, and was not nearly as experimental as my Dave. In fact, if it hadn't been for the illicitness of it all, it wouldn't have lasted the 7 months and 6 liaisons it actually had. How unlucky we'd been discovered before I terminated our affair after our next trip in 2 weeks' time. Focus, Megan. How you were discovered isn't relevant. You were found out, and now your husband trusts you so little he's getting DNA tests done on your kids. My mind flashed back to a scant 20 minutes earlier, when I'd come home late, too late to enjoy dinner with my family. Luckily, Dave worked from home, did the school runs, and cooked dinner 6 nights a week. I was supposed to cook on Sundays, but I normally went and got takeaways. Let's just say cooking isn't one of my strong points. Walking in the door, I froze at the horrible sight. Dave sitting on one of the kitchen chairs with one of those cotton swabs on a stick, wiping it around the inside of the mouth of Jillian, our 5-year-old. The open, sterilized packet sitting on the table. Peter, our 7-year-old, standing there also, either waiting his turn or having been done already. I'd read enough stories and seen enough TV to know I was looking at the opening act of a DNA test. My initial reaction was one of rage. How dare Dave think the kids weren't his? I wasn't a Or was I? Knowing I had to think how best to survive this, I just turned and fled. Just before I did, Dave turned to look at me, a neutral expression on his face. I raised my hands to my cheeks, remembering the feeling of the blood draining from them, which was a blatant confession of the truth in the circumstances of what the testing was accusing me of. 20 minutes later, here I am, contemplating my family's and my social destruction. I knew Dave. I knew him as well as he knew himself. Once he was ready to confront me, he would do it firmly and quietly. He wouldn't want the whole town to know he'd had the horns hung on him. If I couldn't prevent him from at least divorcing me, I'd ask him to do it quietly. Just say we'd grown apart. That way, even though I'd lose the security of my marriage, I could still stay in town and see my kids, maybe have shared joint custody. I did love them. My mind wandered off for God knows how long, running different scenarios of how Dave would react, trying to find the one that made me lose the least. Suddenly, I realized I was thinking like a defeatist. I was using my knowledge of Dave and assuming that separation was a given and that the best scenario from here was a quiet divorce. But what if I was wrong? What if I threw myself on Dave's mercy, told him about the forgivable first time and the regrettable continuation? He wouldn't want a divorce any more than me. Sure, his faith and trust in me would be shattered, and it would take years for him to fully trust me again. But I would still have the respectability and the support of the community. If you do this, Megan, you'll have to be absolutely honest with Dave. One whiff of an untruth, and you'll arrive at the curb quicker than a cheetah on speed. I glanced at my watch. Just under 2 hours since my discovery, I hadn't been as clever at hiding my affair with Carl as I'd thought. 2 hours since I'd gone from being secure in my marriage to fighting for its very life. 2 hours after seeing my husband's DNA testing my children raised my blood pressure 100 points. I tapped out a quick text. I'm on my way home to beg you for forgiveness for my affair with Carl. Please don't do anything hasty. Then slowly headed my car home. Well, what happened after that exceeded my worst nightmare. 10 minutes after sending my text, I reached home. As soon as I pulled into the driveway, Dave stormed out the door, threw a "Stay here and look after the kids" at me, and screamed off in his car. I found out later that he went straight to Carl's house, and when my lover answered the door, broke his nose with a single punch while yelling, "Mess with my wife, will you?" Those words stopped Carl's wife from calling the police, and between her and Dave, they extracted the full story as Carl begged them to call him an ambulance. With Carl saying he was punched, but his wife claiming he fell against the wall, the police investigation went nowhere. When he returned from an emergency, the locks were changed at his house, and his wife had an online appointment with a divorce lawyer. How do I know all this? Dave came straight home and told me to pack a bag and leave. With one look at the fire in his eyes and his bruised knuckles, with an inkling of how they came to be, I did as requested and fled to a mid-range motel in town. I saw a bandaged Carl at the breakfast bar the next day. Any hopes Dave would be quiet were dashed in the early afternoon when Carl and I were invited into the COO's office and summarily executed. She didn't quote any morals clause in our contracts, just said she didn't want to employ home-wrecking, bottom-feeding scumbags like the pair of us. Ouch. I could see how the immediate future was going to be when I rang all 3 divorce lawyers in our town, and none returned my call. When I went to a diner for dinner, the waitress refused to acknowledge my existence. The nail in the coffin, however, was when I met up with Carl and found out he was already being treated like a leper by family, friends, and ex-work colleagues alike. Within 2 days, spurred by a visit from the motel manager who claimed his establishment was booked out from that night, yeah, right, Carl and I bowed to the inevitable and left town. We didn't want to become social ghosts, like we'd seen Mary Skelton become just last year when she'd been caught cheating. We drove for 300 kilometers and started a new life together. That didn't last long. I know I may be speaking the bleeding obvious, but when 2 cheaters shack up together, there is no trust. I'd never realized just how important trust was to a relationship until the evening I had to fight the urge to check his phone when he was in the bathroom. By the time I finally worked up the courage to ask Dave if I could come back to town to visit the kids one weekend, he and they had replaced me. He was a fine catch, and once he was free, the vultures, being all the attractive bachelorettes and widows, made their interest known. By the time I got organized, there was already a dainty set of shoes under Dave's bed. My kids had a stepsister and were already calling another woman Mum. Now, too old to start another family, all I can do is sit and contemplate the lonely life I have to look forward to. From the perspective of Dave, I lie here having glanced at the bedside clock, 11:05 p.m. The soft breathing of Ruth lying next to me reminds me of our sexual marathon of the last 2 hours. Intimacy with someone new after 10 years with the one woman was good. Damned good. We'd done some stuff that was borderline illegal. Yeah, life is good, if a little bizarre. One wife cheated on me, but before I could mourn the death of that marriage too much, I was being seduced by someone younger, better looking, and way more adventurous. The surreal last day of my old marriage still confuses the hell out of me. Maybe if I relive it in my head, for the 10,000th time, it may finally make sense. How did it go? On the final day of my marriage, Megan came home, walked into the house, and without saying a word, just turned and walked away again. I heard her car start up and drive away. I was busy for a few minutes longer, and by the time I rang Megan's cell, it was engaged. With no sign of her, I began the kids' bedtime routine, and they were quickly asleep. Not seeing their mother before they turned in, sadly, was a not unusual occurrence. I went into the kitchen and was just about to ring Megan again when the house phone rang. The display showed an unrecognized cell number. The next few minutes went something like this from memory. "Hello, David Brown speaking." Hello, Dave, it's Carl." I knew Carl, of course. He'd started working with my wife some time ago. I'd seen him at a couple of work functions and even been invited over to his housewarming. What was his wife's name? Rebecca? Beck? Something like that. Very good-looking, nicely shaped, and a couple of years younger than Megan and I. Carl, on the other hand, I thought was a tosser. Arrogant, full of himself, and he looked down his nose at me. A legend in his own mind. The last person I wanted to talk to after a hard day. That's why my next words probably didn't come out as very friendly. "Yes, Carl, what can I do for you?" "What is it going to take?" he asked. I didn't have a clue what he was talking about and said nothing in my confusion, forcing him to continue. "If my wife finds out I've been having an affair with Megan for the last 6 months or so, she'll cut my balls off and I'll lose my kids. So, I'll be up front, Dave. What is it going to take to keep your mouth shut?" I don't remember dropping the phone and slumping to the floor as the devastating news that my loving wife had betrayed me in the worst way possible battered my consciousness. I'd been totally unsuspecting and couldn't believe it. Yet the pleading in Carl's voice was pretty convincing. Then my mind turned to the recently oft-pondered problem. Why had my wife seemed to emotionally pull away from me and the kids in the last half year or so? Nothing drastic, just definitely there. I would later realize that the first stage of grief, denial, lasted less than 30 minutes of floor time, replaced by anger, a blind rage to mask the pain of my loss. I still had enough control to not take it out on Megan. That way, prison lay. Her lover was an entirely different thing, though. As soon as I heard Megan return, I drove to the jerk's house, and with all the anger I possessed, punched him fair and square. The feel of bone and cartilage breaking under my fist made me smile even now. Carl's forced confession in his lounge room, dripping blood, was completely unnecessary for my education, but necessary for his wife. The release of anger allowed me to return home and calmly tell Megan to bug off. As I listened to my bed partner lightly snore, I realized I was no closer to solving the mystery than I was the last 100 times I'd tried to work it out. Why had Carl sown the seeds of his own marriage's destruction by confessing to me when I was clueless? I couldn't help thinking again that Megan's strange behavior that night, by coming in from work, then leaving again without a word, had something to do with it all. Once again, I replayed that evening in my head. I'd cooked dinner, like always. Confirmed Megan would be late, so sat and ate with the kids, chatting away as we did. Then started to clear up. Jillian complained that she had a sore spot in her mouth. I grabbed a torch, turned back her bottom lip, and saw the ulcer. Going to our first aid cupboard, I grabbed the tube of Bonjela and one of those individually wrapped cotton swabs, opened both, smeared one onto the other, and used the cream for the purpose it was designed for. Absolutely nothing to do with the mystery at hand. Bugger, I'm beginning to suspect I'll never know. Turning on my side, I inserted my arm under the sleeping beauty's head and spooned her, gently kissing the back of her neck. She pressed into me and purred a little. Forget the mystery. Life is good. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I sat quietly and listened to the preacher give the eulogy to my best friend. Cody was more than my best friend. He was the man I had loved since high school. Now I have lost him forever. I need to explain. I met Cody George on my first day in high school. He lived outside of town on a ranch. I lived in town, so we had gone to different grade schools, but the county had only one high school. It was just luck that we were in all the same classes. I always managed to sit next to that good-looking boy, and soon we were talking and comparing notes. Over the next month, we became friends, and by Thanksgiving, we were inseparable. Neither Cody nor I played sports, not the traditional sports anyway. Our school had a rodeo team, and Cody made the team. By our sophomore year, people were starting to take notice. Cody was good. I was at every event cheering him on. I remember one afternoon he was bucked off a rank horse that no one had been able to ride. I met him behind the chutes and was offering my opinions about how nobody could ride that horse. He stopped me. Jesse, there never was a horse that couldn't be ridden, and there never was a cowboy that couldn't be thrown. I will remember that forever. His senior year, he received scholarship offers from universities that had rodeo teams. He turned them all down. Why? Terrorists had flown planes into the towers, and Cody thought it was his duty to go fight them. I disagreed. I tried to talk him out of it, but he joined the Marines and left after graduation. We were both still virgins. While Cody went to war, I went to college. I majored in banking and got a job in the summer working as a teller in our local bank. I wrote Cody letters and emails every chance I got. He always returned my letters, which kept me informed about his life. I was in college, away from home for the first time in my life, so I took advantage of my freedom like all my new friends. At a party one night, I lost my virginity. I did not tell Cody because I imagined he was drinking and carousing with his Marine buddies. When Cody came home, I was the assistant manager of the bank and in charge of the loan department. I was in a relationship with a guy I had met in college. Relationship is probably not the right word. It was more of a friends with benefits type of thing. Cody was single, but dating a couple of girls around the county. It was about 6 months after he came home that tragedy struck. His mother and father were both killed in a terrible traffic accident. Cody was an only child, so he inherited their small ranch outside of town. It was completely paid for, but his father did have an open line of credit with the title to the ranch as the guarantee. The line of credit was $50,000. The ranch was valued at much more than that. Cody was dating a girl who worked as a receptionist at a law office in town. There were rumors about her and one of the lawyers who worked there. He was married, but they were just rumors. After the death of Cody's parents, things seemed to heat up between this girl, Sue, and Cody. Within a couple of months, I heard that they had run off to Vegas and got married. To say I was heartbroken would be an understatement. I had always thought that one day, Cody and I would be together. We still talked, and I saw him every now and then around town with that blonde bimbo. There were still rumors about her and that married lawyer. I am sure Cody did not know. Many nights I lay in my bed wondering if I should tell him. I would think of all kinds of scenarios. Maybe Cody knows and does not care, or maybe he watches. He might think I am jealous and trying to cause trouble in his marriage. I was really torn about what to do. Then one day he called me with surprising news. His unfaithful wife is pregnant. 7 months later, the baby is born. Cody called me and wanted to meet me at the city cafe for lunch. He had pictures of the baby he wanted to show me. I went just to see Cody. I still love that guy. He was sitting at a table when I walked in. There were tears in his eyes. "Cody, what's wrong? Is there a problem with the baby or your wife?" "There sure is a problem," he is almost shouting as he hands me his phone. It is open to pictures of the baby. The baby is black. "What am I going to do? I'll tell you what I feel like doing. I want to find out who the father is and kill both him and that cheating wife of mine." "Calm down a minute. I don't want you to do that. You'll end up in jail for the rest of your life. Let's think this through. When does Sue get out of the hospital?" "Tomorrow," he replied. "I imagine she has seen the baby." "Of course, she was nursing it when I left." "What did she say?" I asked. "She told me to get used to the idea of her messing around and me raising that kid. She says there is nothing I can do about it. She said that she and the baby were going home tomorrow and live in my house. If I decide to divorce her, I'll need to find another place to live. She said we live in a no-fault state, and I'll have to pay her alimony and child support since the baby was born during our marriage. It makes no difference if the kid is not mine. How the hell is that right? She cheated, not me." He was getting loud. "Take a breath, Cody." He did take a deep breath, then continued. "She told me I might even have to pay for the kid's college education. Can you believe that? Then after about 18 years of me paying everything, she will sell the ranch and send me 50%. That is, if I am still alive." That bitch laughed when she said that. "Cody, breathe," I replied. Jesse, she knew exactly what to say to me. It was like she had been coached and had rehearsed that speech. She was laughing when I stormed out of the room. "Cody, she works at a law office, and one of those lawyers is black. He is probably the father. He advised her on what the law is in this state and on what to say to you. I am not a lawyer, but I think it would be best for you to not be alone with her. She may call the sheriff and claim you were violent, and she is afraid you will harm her or the baby. If she gets you arrested, you will spend time in jail, and she will get everything in the divorce. I would offer you my spare bedroom, but that may raise problems also. I'll make some calls and get you a place." I called around as we waited for our food, and I did find him a place to stay. Then I started working on a plan. After lunch, I went back to work at the bank. Cody went home and packed up his things and moved to a place the bank had repossessed. It had a few acres and a barn, so Cody was able to take his horse. The next morning, while Sue waited for Cody to pick her up at the hospital, I met him in my office. I increased his line of credit on his ranch to $500,000 and had him withdraw it in cash. The place was valued at $750,000, so there was no problem. At the same time, he rented a safe deposit box. The money was not put in that box. Sue and the baby went home in a taxi. Cody did not answer any of her calls. Earlier that same morning, he had driven the few head of cattle he owned over to a neighbor's pasture. A couple of days later, he loaded them into trailers and hauled them to a sale barn. Sue gave up on trying to get Cody to talk to her and filed for divorce. Cody was served at his new place. At the first hearing, an attorney from the firm where Sue worked, not her baby's daddy, represented her. Cody did not show up but sent a lawyer from out of town, my friend with benefits. Of course, Cody was the bad guy. He abandoned his wife and new baby. The judge ordered him to pay everything, even her legal fees. Things were going according to my plan. Before the first payment to his unfaithful wife was due, Cody went on a ride with the sheriff's department. It was a trail ride to raise money for some charity the sheriff sponsored. There were over 100 riders that morning. After about 3 hours on the trail, they came to the Wolf River. It was running fast from the recent rains, so Cody said for everyone to wait, he would cross first to make sure it was safe. He was about halfway across the river when it happened. His horse spooked for some reason. Some thought it was a snake swimming in the river. Others said it was a log rushing by. Whatever it was had caused Cody to fall off. He was washed away in the current. The sheriff said the river got deeper just below the crossing, and Cody's boots probably filled with water and he drowned. His body was never recovered, and it is presumed that he washed downstream to where the river empties into the Missouri River. They searched for 3 days, then gave up and declared him dead. That brings us up to today. After the church service, everyone gathered at Cody's house, the house where Sue was living. There was plenty of food, a tradition in our part of the country. All Cody's friends were there, even some he had rodeoed with back in the day. One man was very vocal. "I take exception to what that preacher said. Cody ain't never fell off a horse in his life. He might have gotten thrown, but the witnesses said he fell. Bullshit. I bet somebody shot him." "Ronnie, that did not happen. I was there along with the sheriff and 2 deputies. Nobody heard a gunshot." That was said by another of our friends. "Well, I ain't ever going to believe it. That guy was the best damn cowboy I ever been around. What a horrible way for him to die. Jesse, were you there? What do you think?" "Ronnie, I did not make the ride this year. I had something important to take care of that morning. I wish I had been there. You know, maybe I could have." The sheriff spoke up. "Stop! There was nothing anybody could have done. It happened so fast. We searched for him, but he was just gone." I excused myself and left. 2 days later, Sue and her baby's daddy showed up at the bank. "What the hell is this? I don't owe $500,000 on that ranch, no way." I searched through the files and pulled one out. I handed it to the black attorney. He studied them for maybe 3 minutes. "Shit, Sue. This looks all in order. Cody borrowed $500,000 against the ranch a couple of days after the baby was born." "How the hell could he do that? That ranch was ours." "I did not sign anything," Sue replied. "No, Sue. That ranch was willed to Cody by his parents. It was in his name only, and that credit line was put on the ranch by his father. He used it to buy and sell cattle." "So, where's the money?" She is pissed. The attorney takes over the conversation. "Did Cody have an account here at the bank?" "Only the one in both Sue and Cody's name." "There is less than $100 in that account." Sue is getting loud. "What about a safety deposit box?" "Cody has one of those," I replied. "Open it. That's where the money is," she shouted. "I'll need an order signed by a judge," I replied. "Open that goddamn box now." "Calm down, Sue. Let me handle this. Your divorce was not final, so there should not be a problem. By law, you were still married to him at the time of his death. You are his widow." That seemed to satisfy Sue. She smirked at me, then they got up and left. There was a problem. The judge wanted to wait for a death certificate to be issued before he would give her permission to open the box. That took a couple more weeks. The bank sent another notice demanding their money and threatening foreclosure. Sue and her attorney were back with the order to open the box. I arranged for a locksmith to meet us, and we opened the box. It was empty. Sue was pissed. "Where's the goddamn money? It just did not disappear." "Can we look at the bank's video of the day Cody received the money? Maybe that will show something." "That should not be a problem," I replied. We searched through the stored tapes until we found Cody standing at a teller's window. The teller counted the money and then put it in 2 of the bank's zippered money bags. Cody then walked over to the vault where the safety deposit boxes were, signed in, and disappeared with a bank employee into the vault. She exited and sat at her desk. In a few minutes, Cody exited carrying the bank bags and walked out the front door of the bank. "What did he do in that room? He left with the money. Where is it? I need that money." Sue was getting loud again. "This bank is going to take my home. Where am I supposed to go? You are going to have to help me. This is your kid. Find us a place." "Calm down, Sue." "Don't you dare tell me to calm down. This was your idea. You said I'd get the house and land. Now I've got nothing." He had her by the arm and was leading her towards the door. "Let me go, asshole. I'm telling your wife. We'll see what she thinks about—" She never finished. He slapped her so hard she fell to the floor. He stepped over her and left. The bank's security guard was helping her up when the sheriff arrived. I had called him when Sue had started screaming about the bank taking her home. The attorney spent a couple of nights in jail for assault and battery. Within a month, his wife started divorce procedures, and the bank foreclosed on Cody's house and land. I heard Sue sued her baby's daddy for child support, and won. She moved out of town, as did the attorney, after he lost his job and was suspended from practicing law for 6 months. Have you figured out that Cody is not dead? From the perspective of Cody, Jesse had a plan, and it sounded like it would work. I mean, what were my choices? Killing Sue and her lover was not one, nor was paying alimony to a cheating wife for the rest of my life while she lived rent-free in my house. I was not going to pay child support for a kid that is not mine either. Jesse knew I always helped on that charity ride, and that would fit in with the plan for me to disappear. I halted the ride at the edge of the river, telling everyone I would cross first to make sure it was safe. I made the horse rear, and I fell into the river. I quickly swam underwater to the deepest part, and then stayed under until I reached the cave that Jesse and I had discovered when we were kids. I swam inside, then surfaced and sat on the rocks. People searched the river, but no one knew about that cave but Jesse and me. At 9 p.m., the search had been called off for the night, and I swam downriver to a bridge. Jesse picked me up and took me to an airport 300 miles away from our town. I boarded a plane with my passport and flew to South America. Nobody bothered to check the airports or immigration. I was dead in the river as far as anyone who cared thought. Jesse had given me enough cash to stay in a nice hotel and live until I found what I was looking for. It is a hacienda. It is 3 times bigger than my ranch back home. I can run a nice-sized herd of beef cattle and a few horses. I started my new life when Jesse wired me the $500,000. Life is good and getting better every day since I met my neighbor's daughter. Back to the perspective of Jesse. I am the only person alive who knows Cody did not die in that river. I have kept that secret for over 20 years now, and I plan on keeping it until the day I die. No one will ever know, not even my friend with benefits who I married a couple of years ago. Do I still love Cody? Of course I do. I always will. But it would never have worked out between us, and I knew it. Cody is a real man's man. That's why I love him. He's what every young boy dreams of becoming, and every old man wishes he had been: an American hero, a cowboy. He doesn't have a single ounce of attraction to men, As for me, I've known I was attracted to men my whole life. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.